And welcome to another scene set in the Chronicles of Darkness. Vampire the Requiem. Requiem for London. Tonight, we set our scene. The entrance to the Tower of London. Julian, you have been summoned here by the Baron of this domain. Baron Delphine Paquette of your very sect. It is here that she has ordered you to arrive at, directing you to St. John's Chapel. A small Romanesque chapel located on the second floor of the White Tower, the main citadel of the fortress itself.
Is Julian handcuffed or anything, or is he was legitimately just summoned to this?
He's been summoned here, as in just told to come here. No powers, no manipulations, no archons or sheriffs have come to apprehend him. You were expected to arrive without compulsion.
Well, unfortunately, they'd be right. There's no hostility to be shown, so Julian will arrive on time. That he'll have a small flash drive in one of his pockets that he's toiling with when he arrives to the chapel.
As you walk down the path that leads to the White Tower, you don't see many members of security this evening. Looks to be a skeleton crew. You do, however, hear a few ravens that caw at you as you walk across the path. They glide over your head.
Are they saying anything specific, or just, non-committed cause?
Nothing specific. They perch on an overhang near the entrance to the tower. Although they do appear to focus on you specifically. They give you a rather unsettling glare.
He looks at them for a moment, but he assumes at this point, since they seem to be more aware than most, that they're probably someone's familiars, quote unquote, and just simply looks ahead and senses around if anybody's here already trying to talk to him or jump him.
When you go to enter, you find that the door has been left unlocked. And you're able to make your way up to the second floor where the chapel is. When you make your way into the chapel, you see the altar at the far end. A few simple windows. Reinforced with small metal tubing, rods. And before the altar are 3 individuals. The first is the Baron. You recognize plainly. At her side, a step beneath her, is the Sheriff of East London. You've seen him before, although he is not of your sect. Sheriff Mort Kozlova. A Nosferatu, and now Ancella of the Invictus. And beneath him is your sire. Her distinct red eyes. You see that she is kneeling, with her head face down. Her eyes glint up for you for just a moment, but otherwise do not move. And her legs are partial stumps. They've been cut off at the knees.
Should I roll a frenzy check, realizing what's happened to her?
It's your prerogative. I won't force you.
Julian's fangs just out of response. See his sire being mutilated. They extend out, but he keeps himself from audibly hissing. But he doesn't deny the fury on his face when he sees what's happening.
The sheriff's thumb flicks at the hilt of his sword, carefully tucked away underneath his long coat. Unsheathing it ever so slightly, you can see a glint of metal. Bram will step forward. Mr. Goodman, it is a shame we are having to have this conversation once again. She waits for a response.
Julian, his eyes glare at him, they go back to his sire, back and forth, and he finally says, It is a shame that we're having this conversation once again. No different. It's a shame that we aren't just having this conversation. Emphasizing that he doesn't like that he's getting her involved in the way that they did.
We must all be held accountable for the consequences of our actions.
I understand that, but she didn't do anything. Unless you were trying to live up to the tradition, to the psychic tradition.
I would certainly not neglect such a universal law among our kind. You already understand why you are here.
He nods.
Your indiscretions made national news before even the sun had begun to rise. And that has caused a great many problems, not just for myself, not just for those to whom I owe my position, but to every kindred within this domain. Your actions have threatened them all, and it is not the first time this has happened, has it?
No, this isn't the first time.
Sheriff, might you explain? You are far better informed than I on the situation within the Met currently. Your actions have not only been causing my own contacts to scramble for any hope of suppressing this situation, which has threatened the very assets of the king himself. Not only have the police made this investigation their priority, not only are they placing their attention on a police station that currently houses and is ran by one of our own, but they are currently looking for your old files. And as a result have begun looking for those who made them disappear.
And they report the military arms within the facility.
I have interviewed your blood sister on that particular matter.
His eyes narrow when he brings that up.
But I think you'll find there is very little on the arms of your financial adversary, and much more on your actions. In fact, I do not believe there has been any news at all. On arms being held within that particular estate.
News or not, it doesn't mean it's not there. Military grade hardware, incendiary rounds by the canister. So they filled up a corner of that warehouse. Someone is preparing for war.
Well, they certainly aren't going to be there anymore, are they? Because your actions have clearly tipped them off. And so has any hope of investigating that lead further. It is burnt. But perhaps it would not have been my issue to investigate at all. Had the masquerade been kept. It has been decided that you have been reprimanded enough times for your failings. The matter is being taken out of the Ordo's hands. However, the king, in his magnanimity, has given you the extreme leisure, a choice. And contrary to the popular opinion, the court has granted you an opportunity. And a responsibility. Because it is not just you who's being held accountable here this evening. You may have made these mistakes. These mistakes would not have occurred if the embrace was chosen more thoroughly, more properly trained, and more appropriately disciplined. The truth is that you have not been held accountable because your sire has not held you accountable.
He barks he barks bullshit. Like, you don't know what I go through, nor do you care. It's like, it wasn't. Yeah, he'll continue. So it was a mistake to let you have the power that you got. Said.
We all make mistakes, Mr. Goodman. The real test of character is how we deal with them. Your sire chose not to.
He doesn't bare his fangs, but the grimace on his face just worsens.
But the king has acknowledged the logic and merit of your very common forward-thinking, dare I say, argument. And that is why he presents you with a choice. For these actions are either your own, as an independent kindred, freed from the accounting of your sire, your teacher, your mentor, the one who taught you the ways of the dance macabre, or they are not. And you were misled, poorly trained, and ill-equipped to deal with the realities of the night. Released too early, and without the proper vetting. Set up to fail, one might argue. Ultimately, you're of her blood and she is of yours. You carry the burden, or rather she carries the burden of your actions. That is my opinion. I'm not here to judge this evening. I am here as an executioner. It is you who must decide who is guilty of these crimes.
There's no question who's guilty of this crime. I. Said, Thistle never chose wrong. I did wrong. Said, found by a generous man. He saw a rabid dog on the street and brought him into his house. Said him and his caretaker trained that dog well. But that doesn't change the fact that sometimes the dog can't be truly domesticated. It will always have the feral beast of the wild with him at all times. Sometimes it comes out. Sometimes it wants to come out. It's supposed to be there. It can only play the human game for so long. That's not their fault. That's the nature of the dog. So some dogs are lap dogs, some dogs are wild dogs. As I've already proven time and time again, I'm no lap dog.
but it is their owners who are punished.
Because they have the bigotry of lack of excellence. They think the dog is not capable to make their own decisions, so they blame it on the owner. I'm capable of my own decisions. Unfortunately, the dog that she felt that she chose right proved her wrong. It's not her fault, it's the dog's fault. There are such things as bad students.
Then you claim responsibility for these actions and everything that entails.
So, I do. So, I'm no coward.
Then, under the authority that I have as Sheriff of East London, to the grace of King Stanford, Queen Morgan, and Baroness Paquette, you are hereby sentenced to the final death. For your actions against the masquerade, and by extension against us all. And he will fully unsheath his blade. A very well-made, articulate thing, but a razor sharp. In stark contrast to his decrepit form. Roll me initiative, because I assume you're not going down without a fight.
That's actually not true. I was going to ask, I wish to invoke my final rites before the execution commences. Will he allow that?
As he approaches you, ready to kill you, see that he will take a moment to stay his blade, but you don't imagine he will stay it for long. You should speak quickly.
Julian will walk over to Thistle, and basically he'll say to her that, sorry that I failed you. Sorry that I failed father and failed my sister. So you didn't deserve this. And this is wrong for me to ask you this, but he states that there's 2 men and a dog that were under my care. If you have it in you, make sure they're taken care of. And he'll put his hand on her shoulder, and a comforting action, though he feels that it's probably too late for that. And says, I think L'Oreal was a better choice for you. And I hope she does you better than I ever did. And he'll stand up and go in front of front of the Baron, and he'll put himself in a late vulnerable position. And he just says his final words that I'm Julian Tyler Goodman. Said, said, line of Enkidu, the line of Pangango. Said, axe of the Order of Dracul, and I'm ready for my punishment.
He will point with 2 fingers towards the ground.
He'll lean his head forward.
He will raise his sword above his head. Keeping his eyes firmly on you at all times. He does not look away. His eyes remain locked with yours. A few seconds will pass. And then he'll bring the sword crashing down upon your neck. And I will actually have him roll for this.
So he can chop me maybe more than once.
Okay. Do you use resilience at all? Do you try and...
No, that I have dishonored my family enough.
Okay.
If my death will bring back peace and honor, then that's what it'll take.
His strike cuts deeply into your neck and almost cleanly cuts it off. But in a stark about turn to realism, how it is often quite difficult to cut so cleanly through a human. It takes him a moment. Your flesh is so dense, and your beast pulls on the reserves of resilience. And he is forced to put his foot against your shoulder. And leverage his sword through you. One last time, in excruciating pain. Last thing you see is your sire flinching, looking away and crying out in pain. As your head and then your body hit the floor. And that is where we'll end this scene.